Good morning again. I say again, this is the third time I've done this video. The first time I forgot to put the sound on. I always remember to have the sound on, and the second time the sound went wrong. Anyway, enough of my personal problems. Let's go on with the show. Today's topic, adding remote start and stop buttons to Direct Online Starter. DOL stands for Direct Online Starter. It's the most basic form of motor starter. I wish I had one to show you, but I'm at home, as you can tell, because my ducks aren't there. Anyway, there's a couple of concepts that you need to remember about adding start and stop buttons to a Direct Online Starter. And the Direct Online Starter is a box about this big with a green start button and a red stop button. So it may be that we need to add other start and stop buttons at different places around the machine just to make it a bit more convenient. And if you want to stop the machine in a hurry without having to run all the way around to the actual box, so you can add as many start and stop buttons as you like. But there's a couple of concepts that you need to remember, a couple of things you need to consider. And the first one is really that all your stop buttons have to be wired together in series. And the reason for that is, here's your typical stop button, and you'll see that this is what they call a normally closed switch. So in its normal steady state, the switch is closed, meaning that you can get the connection all the way through that switch. So it's kind of normally on all the time, if you like. And then we can then wire other stop buttons in series, which means that the current is free to flow all the way through until such times as somebody presses the stop button, which then opens the circuit. And once the circuit is open, that will drop the current out of the coil of the contactor and the motor will stop. Stop buttons then in series. Start buttons, slightly different game. They get wired in parallel. Why is this? So this is a typical sort of diagram for a start button. You can see this is a normally open connection. So no current passed through this until such times as you press it. When you press it, it then closes this connection here. So once you press the start button, it makes the connection, which will then energize the coil within the contactor. Happy days. Now these then we have to wire together in parallel, so it means that we can close the circuit from either this point, and the current will pass all the way through, or we can do it from this point. Okay, so in their normal steady state, as they're installed, these are normally open. Okay, the circuit doesn't energize until you press the button down and make that connection. So stop buttons in series, start buttons in parallel. Let's have a look at what a typical control circuit looks like. And sometimes it's useful, it may look complicated, but think about the path that the current will take. The current path is through here, and it gets to the start button. And it's got nowhere to go at the minute. We've got an open connection there and an open connection here. So when we press the start button down, it means then that current can flow through the start button, through this link here, through the normally closed stop button, and it then energizes the coil. Now when the coil energizes, it magnetizes the armature within the contactor, and we have this chappy here. This is the auxiliary contact. It's the spare contact that's on the contactor, sometimes called the hold-on contact. Because what will happen is, once you press the start button, current flows through, energizes the coil. This will then magnetically close this contact. It then makes a connection through this point. What that means is that it allows you to let go of the start button, and the current will then continue through this part of the circuit, through the hold-on contact, through the link, through the stop button, through to the coil. Coil is still energized and still holding that connection across there. So that will stay closed, and it will stay working indefinitely until you press the stop button, which then you can see that interrupts the circuit. So if you press the stop button, the current would stop there because that would open up at that point once you pressed it, which means there's no current path to the coil, and that will then drop out. And I'll talk about undervoltage protection in a minute, because we nearly hit on the actual the mechanism of providing undervoltage protection. So I'll come to that in a minute. So adding start and stop buttons. I would say that what you need to do, it's kind of labelled as a link because links, of course, get removed. So we're going to take that link out. That will then allow us to extend this control circuit, particularly in regard to the fact that we have already a parallel connection here, as you can see, from the start button to the hold-on contact, and we can just simply add another start button in parallel. We kind of stack it or shunt it on top, if you like. Start button's connected in parallel. So if I was to press this button here, it would then give me a current path through this switch. Or if I was to press it here, it would be through this switch. So we can use either of these start buttons to complete our circuit. Stop buttons then, as we said, stop buttons get connected in series. So here we have a series connection then, so the current path can continue through both stop buttons. And as I said before, you can add as many stop buttons as you like, provided they're wired in series. And the point is, because they're a normally closed switch, and it's when you press the button it opens it, and that is when it interrupts that circuit path. So you can have as many as you like in there to interrupt that circuit path. In fact, quite often they do on machines. There's lots of stop buttons and interlocks and stuff that are wired in this way, wired in series. Now, of course, then we've got start buttons connected in parallel, stop buttons connected in series. We now need to then join these two parts of the circuit together. So we should put the link back in at this point. So let's think about the current path again. So the current is going to flow through here. And if I was to press this start button down, it would make that connection across this point. So the current would flow through here, up to this point, through the stop buttons, and energize the coil. And similarly, if I was to press this start button down, then the current would flow through here. And once you've pressed it, it will pass through this contact, through the stop button, and energize the coil. And again, once the coil is energized, that will magnetically close this part of the contactor, the hold-on contact or auxiliary contact, which will then allow the current to continue flowing once you've let go of the stop button through this path and through the stop buttons again. And that will carry on going indefinitely all through that path there, carry on going indefinitely until such times as you press the stop button. So the golden rules: start buttons in parallel, stop buttons in series. Now, undervoltage protection, I mentioned that before. Undervoltage protection is when we want to prevent the automatic restarting of machines when there's a power failure. So what do I mean by that? Imagine that there's a machine running, maybe it's a mill, maybe it's a lathe, maybe it's whatever. And there's a power cut. So in the power cut, the machine will stop. Now what we don't want to happen quite often, we don't want that machine to restart once the power comes back on, particularly if it gives rise to danger. And a typical example may be that if the machine goes off and the operative thinks, oh, well, you know, there's a power cut now, so I might as well get in there and clean it. I've been meaning to do it the last 3 months. So he gets his head and hands in there, maybe into the gearbox or into anywhere there's many moving parts. And suddenly then the power comes back on. We really don't want that motor to restart, because that would be really, really hazardous. Probably cause a guy an injury, you know, and it has killed people. So the undervoltage protection is afforded by the coil in the contact and this hold-on contact here. So imagine, then, if you will, that we've pressed the start button and the current has gone through the start button, through the stop button, energizes the coil. This has then magnetically closed the hold-on contact, and the current is now running through this path here, through the stop button, and energizes the coil, keeps it energized, that keeps that closed, and so the current will run indefinitely. Now, when there's a power failure, of course, the coil will de-energize, and the magnetic field that's created to hold that closed will disappear, and so this contact will open again, which means that there's no path for the current to flow anymore. It can't go through there because it's open, can't go through that start button because it's open, or this one because it's open. And the machine will only restart by pressing the start button again. Okay, so having this arrangement with the coil and the hold-on contact, that then affords the undervoltage protection. Okay, when there's a power failure, the coil will de-energize, the magnetism disappears and opens that contact, and you can't start that motor again until you've hit those start buttons. Hope that's made that clear. Okay, that's it for now. Don't forget, if you've got any questions, then email, text, WhatsApp, or just come and speak to me face to face in the classroom, and I'll see you in a couple of weeks. All right, catch you soon. Bye.